Hi, welcome back to the Counterfeit Emotions podcast. I'm Curtis Morley, and I'm an emotionologist. Thank you again for joining us on this week's episode. And if you find this information useful, if you find that your heart is starting to heal, please click the like and subscribe because that helps us share the message, helps us get to a place where we can affect more lives. Today, I'm super excited because we have Katy Sine on the show. And Katy is a love researcher. And not only does she research love, she researches self-love and is arguably one of the experts in the world. Just finished a conference in the UK on the topic of love. And we're going to talk about what is self-love and what are the ingredients of love? And is self-love narcissism or is it something else? We're going to talk about how self-love plays into the dyads of kind versus nice, guilt versus shame, acceptance versus connection, and many others. I can't wait. Katy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I feel so honored that you invited me.
Oh, I'm so glad. Our mutual friend Jill Schulman connected us, and
Yes.
she is amazing.
Jill is a gift. She is a jewel. She's a gem. Absolutely adore her bravery, her kindness, her courage. She really embodies the things that she teaches, and I think that's so important.
Yeah. And the way you guys connected was through the Masters of Applied Positive Psychology.
Yeah, the University of Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania,
Yeah, absolutely. So I went through that program and received my master's degree in applied positive psychology, I think 8 years ago, and then was asked back to be an assistant instructor in the program, which is one of the honors of my life, to be able to steward people through this experience of experimenting with what they know about their own well-being, as well as how to offer practices and the science of well-being to other people within the communities that they serve. And the program itself is one of the most student-centric programs I've ever been in. The only other I can relate it to is my time at Cambridge, at the University of Cambridge in the United Kingdom. But it really is this embodied practice of learning. And I think that's the best way to learn, when you're actually teaching it to yourself and then learning the information as well. And experience then kind of becomes wisdom. And so I think at the end of that program, you are wiser, you are kinder, you do feel a sense of well-being, and then you feel a sense of broader purpose to share that with the world. And I think that's what Jill does. I think that's what so many of the graduates of the program do. I mean, they're everywhere impacting the world for the better. And Dr. Martin Seligman, who is one of the founders of the field of positive psychology, has a goal to have most of the world flourishing. And I think it's by I can't remember the particular date, but by a specific date, that's sort of what he's enrolled people in doing. I'm hoping to do it right now. So, but hopefully in time,
let's just get it started.
Yeah,
let's
exactly. But I think we're well on our way to that.
And for those listeners who may not know what positive psychology is, give us the 2-minute elevator pitch.
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
is positive psychology?
Positive psychology is the science of flourishing. So if you think about your emotions and your lived experience as a spectrum of -10 to +10, there's a neutral in between. And most of the history of psychology has said, let's look at what's wrong with us. We got to fix that. We got to make that. We got to make ourselves less sick. And what positive psychology says is, what if we started looking at actually what is right with us and how to bolster and encourage those strengths and our capacity to feel good and to feel positive. And what if we focused on that, so that when we do slip into the negative, which we will, because that's a part of our beautiful human lived experience, how do we then lean into those resources and those reserves that we've been practicing in the good times to then bring ourselves out of that? So, Marty, in his APA presidential address, he was the American Psychological Association's president. He said it's time to start looking at what's right with us and stop trying to fix everything and actually look at preserving and promoting the good and the flourishing and the right to pursue happiness. And he wasn't alone. There were so many amazing researchers like Ellen Langer and Barbara Fredrickson and Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi and Ed Diener, who had been studying happiness and how to really connect with those positive emotions, to allow ourselves to broaden and build our resources and reserves. And that's Barb Fredrickson's work of this idea that when you're feeling negative emotion, you are spiraling and you're in survival and you close up and you close off and you're just baseline trying to survive.
Mhm.
But when you shift into positive emotion and you experience positive emotion, you're able to sit in stress and actually broaden your perspectives and build your resources that promote well-being and promote human flourishing.
I love that.
So
And
that was more than a 2-minute elevator pitch, but that is what it is.
I love that. And one of the things I love about that is that it's not this toxic positivity, put a silver lining on everything. It's truly finding a place in this chaotic, frenetic thing we call life, finding a place of joy
Yeah.
inside of that.
Absolutely. I mean, Dr. James Pawelski, who is the director of practice for the Positive Psychology Center at Penn and is the director of the MAP program, he says that positive psychology is an escape to reality. And I would almost go a step further and say,
Wait, I want to emphasize that
yeah,
an escape to
yeah,
reality,
to
not
reality.
from
Yes,
reality.
exactly. And I would even go a step further, say it's an intentional engagement in reality so that you are seeing the world fully and you're seeing, yes, he calls them sort of like the rainy days and then the sunshiny days or red cape days and green cape days, but that really, in order for us to survive and thrive, we need to be able to mitigate the negative, but we also need to promote the positive. And my PhD advisor, Dr. Julianne Holt-Lunstad, is a social connections researcher. She's one of the world's leading authorities on social connection. And by association, she studies loneliness and how loneliness impacts us and affects us.
Mm,
But how do we promote social connection? How do we get more social connection instead of getting less lonely? You see, there's that distinction of, oh, I can
so
really
important.
focus on being less lonely, which isn't a negative thing. That's actually a good thing to focus on getting less lonely. But when you're actually preserving and promoting your social connection, then you are accruing the skills to get more of it, which we know is good for us. Her research has shown that lacking social connection is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. When you
Yeah.
lack social connection, now it gets misquoted often that loneliness is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day, but they're not the same. They're not just the opposite ends of the spectrum. There really is this encouragement and promotion to be socially connected, that we deeply need other people. It's not just a matter of not being lonely, but loneliness is simply desiring more connection than you're receiving. And so getting less lonely really is helpful by finding more social connection.
Yeah. And my personal belief is connection is the goal. It's the goal of all of it.
Absolutely, absolutely, 100% can agree with you more.
It's the goal of life. It's the goal of relationships. It's the goal of growth is connection.
And that's really where we connected. We've talked before and just sort of riffed off of this idea of how essential connection is, yes, to our survival, because survival is imbued in thriving, and it's you can't have thriving or well-being without survival.
Hmm.
But that there is this emphasis on connecting to self, connecting to others, connecting to the world around us, and connecting to that which is greater than us.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've had the conversation offline about the difference from attachment and connection. And I want to dive into self-love, but if we can take a little divergence here about what is attachment and what is connection,
Mm.
and how we have John Bowlby with attachment theory and Mary Ainsworth and several others. And I found it fascinating that most people don't know attachment theory actually came from ducks.
Yeah.
that it wasn't a human.
And
It didn't.
monkeys.
Yeah, ducks and monkeys.
The monkey experiment, that is the Bowlby experiment, and Ainsworth, of course, her experiment was with small children,
Hmm.
but yeah, the research did start innately with animal research, as a lot of psychological research does.
Yeah. And this idea that attachment, we have to have attachment in life, and what we call healthy attachment or insecure attachment, or all the different flavors of attachment. What I find is that attachment is actually the counterfeit of connection.
Mm,
That if we have a need, and I'm going to put that in air quotes, if we have a
yeah.
need to be attached, then there's a dependence. There's
Mm,
the visualization in my mind is that we're in a river,
yeah.
and the river is flowing, and we go and stake our stake into the ground on the shore, and then we have a rope, and we're
Mm,
attached. And connection to me is flowing with the river,
yeah.
is not trying to fight against, and we have this attachment that we have to be tied to the shore. But connection is just experiencing the river and
That's
flowing
beautiful.
with it.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I mean, I think that attachment, connection, this conversation is directly correlated with things like love and self-love, because I think attachment is a necessity. I do think we come into this world, we have
Yeah.
to attach. We have to
Yeah.
attach as a child. We have to attach to something. We have to attach to a nipple. So whether that's our mom's breast or it's a bottle, in order to survive, there is that attachment mechanism. And we come into the world the most dependent species of any creature on this planet for the longest time. So
Hmm.
we need someone to take care of us in order to survive.
Yeah.
And so attachment I see as a very essential survival mechanism. And so as we come into the world, we attach for food, nourishment, care, and kindness and
Safety.
safety and all of
Hmm.
these different elements that are essential to our human experience. But there's another mechanism that's happening as well that we don't spend as much time thinking or talking about, and that is the connection to our breath. So it's an automatic connection, and it's not around attachment because I'm not holding to anything. I really am now learning the sacred practice and entering the sacred contract that I don't even know that I am when I take my first breath,
Hmm.
because the breath is afforded to me by the world around me. The waste of a tree, what a tree cannot take in that would kill it if it did, is actually my sustenance and life force. And then my exhale, my waste, it's waste that is poison to my body, is actually what keeps the trees and the plants and the world around me surviving.
Hmm.
And this beautiful connection isn't something that I come into an understanding of or an awareness of until much later in life. I teach yoga and meditation and other sort of sacred Eastern wisdom tradition practices. And I always tell people, listen, if you're alive, you are breathing correctly, but there are,
Congratulations,
yeah,
you've made it.
well done. I mean, we all hold our breath in the delivery room until that baby receives its first breath in, because until the umbilical cord is cut, the mother and the child are one. They're one entity because the child is reliant on the mother for survival.
Hmm.
The cord gets cut, then there are two separate entities. They're two individuals, and the child must connect to the air to survive, and then must attach to the mother to survive. And so
Yeah.
there's these two beautiful, functional, systemic mechanisms happening at the same time. We've done a lot of research, a lot of practice, a lot of scientific advancement on this idea of attachment, where it goes wrong, where it goes right, how it impacts us later in life. But I think we hold to the idea of attachment, which is a clinging to something
Yeah.
and a dependency. And we don't allow ourselves to shift into this idea of connection and reliance. We need to be able to rely on other people also to survive. But I think there's nuance there that is technically sound, and I think psychologically sound as well. And it's just not something for thousands of years, we've been afforded the ability to say, well, let me think more about connection and my thriving needs and my survival of like the broader and greater humanity needs, more so than my personal survival, because the personal survival has been the most important aspect of our human life.
Yeah.
But as our bodies have evolved, as our emotions evolve, as our culture evolves, we're able to look at these different elements that really enhance our longevity and say, how do we engage with these mechanisms in really meaningful ways? I mean, the conversation of love and even marrying for love 100 years ago, that was a really hard mechanism to talk about, because many places in the world didn't practice that. Many places in the world today might not practice marrying for love. And that idea of marrying for love is a luxury. I mean, when I look at the movies of like even the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, the great Marilyn Monroe movies, all of those are teaching women how to marry for money, for security, not to marry for love. And even until the 1970s, women couldn't own their own homes. You couldn't have your own mortgage without a man. So the idea of marrying simply for love is something that is actually pretty new to our systems. And so to be able to talk about this idea of attachment versus connection, or attachment in synergy with connection, is something that's new. And I love that you are thinking about it in the ways that you are, because it's so important and valuable to tease apart that nuance, to say like, attachment does serve us.
It does.
These things do serve functions in our lives for some time.
For some time.
But it's an equally important question to say, when does it no longer serve me? And when should I shift my attention? When is it best to shift my attention toward this idea of connection, and more than a survival mechanism of dependency, allowing it to be this survival mechanism of our humanity and our shared common humanity?
Yeah, I love that. And it's almost an evolution of when we're born, there's a complete dependence. And if you look at the maturity continuum from Stephen Covey,
Yeah.
love his maturity continuum. It starts with dependence, and then actually going through the teenagers might be a little bit of anti-dependence of I'm going to do everything I can to, exclude you. But then it works into independence. But oftentimes we get diverted into codependence. We stay in attachment. We stay there and we become codependent on others. But that last phase is interdependence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I find it fascinating that we can't get to interdependence without going through independence. That we need to be whole ourselves before we can move into the phase of interdependence.
Yeah.
And that's where we find connection.
Absolutely. Well, I think we have this, and it is a mathematic certainty that 1 + 1 = 2. We need that in our world and in order to build systems. But I think when it comes to connection and human relationship, 1 + 1 = 1. So one whole and one whole equals one big whole. And I think that that's really important. Like if I have a piece of gum and I have 2 pieces of chewed gum, I know, gross. Why am I saying that? But I put it together. It doesn't become 2 pieces of gum. It becomes one whole piece of gum. It just becomes bigger in mass. And I think that it's important Eastern wisdom tradition has this same theory, and these same sacred systems, which I think is so important. It is a sacred geometry in a way, where we say a child comes into the world to attach, and we spend so much time in attachment. And then in order to shift from attachment to connection, you say, I enter a state of detachment. And then I enter non-attachment.
Yes.
And non-attachment is a deep knowing of the sacred connection that we each share with one another. So when I teach yoga teacher trainings, I'll have parents come up to me and just like ask me, how could you teach me to be like non-attached to my child? And I say, it's not a non-attachment where you don't care. It's not apathy. It's not saying you don't care about
Yeah.
something. It's saying that the connection that we share is deeply understood. As human beings, it's deeply understood that we need clean air. We need food. We need shelter. We need water. We need one another in order to survive. We need one another in order to thrive. For humanity to survive, we need those same things. But we also need to recognize that everyone should have proximal access to those things. Human species is saying, I need to do what I can to survive, but then for the survival of the human species, I need to mate with someone in order for this human species to survive. And then we need to work in collaboration in order to make sure that our child survives. And then the human species is just a big amalgamation of that. But humanity is this quality of survival. What is our quality of survival? You should have access to surviving and all the things you need to survive as much as I have access. I shouldn't lord that over you, and you shouldn't lord it over me. We should recognize that it's a known, it's a certainty. We do need the same things to survive. Now we have individual differences and we may need them to different amounts, but that's where self-knowledge comes into play and say, this is what I need to survive. And what I need to thrive, we also have very similar needs in that regard. And that's where positive psychology comes in and is so helpful, because we can look and say, not only should you have the means to the basis of survival for the human species, but you should also have the means for the basis of survival for our broader shared common humanity. That is connection. The connection is saying, I see you as
Yeah.
my partner in humanity, like you are a member of my human family, not just the biological species. What can I offer you in order for you to not just survive, but thrive? What can I offer myself in that way? And then what can we offer together the world in that way?
Yeah.
And that's love to me.
It is. And I love, if we can backtrack just a little bit.
Yeah.
It's so important to understand the difference of non-attachment versus unattachment
Yeah.
and detachment,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not the same.
No, and detachment, like you said, there's that independence for a child. That's what detachment is. It's seeing I don't need to be as dependent as I once did. And we as parents and as partners should actually love that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very scary because it shifts the relationship dynamic, but it grows it in abundance when you can trust it. See how there are all of these different little mechanisms
Yeah.
at play where we need to be confident in those things in order for us to progress to the next and the next and the next.
Yeah. And that's what it's about, is that progression. And in the tradition of Buddhism, one of the core tenets is that all suffering comes from attachment.
Yes.
And being able to move to non-attachment, not detachment, meaning I'm going to cut you off or I'm going to cut that relationship off. No, of being secure, being whole by yourself. And a fun story. So Patty, this is my Patty.
Oh,
This is,
she's beautiful. You're a gorgeous couple.
she's amazing.
Oh, I love it.
I'm pretty
Bright,
sure
shiny
she's the
eyes.
best person on planet Earth. I'm confident of it.
I love that. And I bet she would say the same thing about you. Like that's like those are the best relationships.
And when we were dating, I shared with her, I said, the most romantic thing you can say to me is, I don't need you.
Mm-hmm.
And at first it kind of had a quizzical look on her face, but then it instantly dawned on her. And she is an amazing deep thinker, and she caught it. She's like, yeah, I'm whole and you're whole, and I want you, but I don't need you. And I am going to connect with you, but I don't need to get my hooks in you. I'm going to be there and see your soul, and I want you to see into me. And that's connection.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think it's like a reverse needing. I tell people this often because people will say, "Oh, well, self-love means that you don't need anybody and you're hyper independent." And I say, I actually think it's the opposite. When you
Yeah.
when you feel love viscerally in your life, when you open to the abundance of how incredibly amplified life is when you love yourself, you can't help but want to share it with every single person that you meet. And in that way, you need other people, but not in the way that you need to take something from them or you can't survive without them. But you need them to be able to offer your love to. You need them to be able to connect with. And the
Yeah.
beautiful thing about connection is that you don't need the other person to be like, I am equally as connected to you in order to feel that love and in order to connect with someone. I feel connected to you. I haven't checked in with you. Are you connected with me? But I am offering you
Mm.
so much love and kindness and connection in this moment. And I feel it from you. Now, I feel it to the level that you allow yourself to feel it and offer it to me. But it doesn't have to be systematic tit for tat reciprocity.
Yeah.
Reciprocity is that give and take.
Very
Love
transactional.
is that offering and receiving. I offer my love to you because it's not really mine. It's this abundant energy that exists all around us. It's this motivation within my neural circuitry to preserve and promote my well-being, your well-being, the well-being of the world around us. And so in that, as you offer back to me, I receive you right where you are. I create the psychologically safe space for not just me to be whole or feel integrated, but for you to be whole and feel integrated as well. And in that safe space, you can play with your capacity for love. And it is so beautiful. And the world is electric in those moments. And then we say, like, oh, I feel this love. This might be a momentary thing. And I'll go on my way thinking, holy cow, I just had the most connective moment with Curtis or that woman on the plane or the gentleman I passed in the park because we just like made that eye contact and just no love. And so it was just exchanged. And I'm not holding that for just one person or just two people. I'm offering it to everyone. And what indicates the level of relationship I have with people is what we agree to. So, Curtis, I want to be your friend. I feel that connection and bond. Like, let's create actions that then allow that connection to flow in a way where friendship grows and blossoms. Or, oh, I, met someone like your sweet wife, and I know that I want this to be an eternal thing. I want it to go on for time and time and time again. And whether that's coming back in past lives or it's living on in infinity, all of those things, it's this beautiful commitment. I want
Yeah.
you to be my partner. And I want to create a family with you. And I want to create a life with you. 1 + 1 = 1. And then for a while, we're all whole in our family unit. And then our little ones start to burst out of that little bubble. And they go and find a 1 + 1 = 1. And then we have all of this beautiful interconnectivity. But it's not that ownership. It's not that clause in you. It's not your mine. It's we are together. We are connected in a really special way. And so I think the relationship actions and the relationship standards and rules and norms are what dictate the relationships that we have through love. But that love itself is its own operationalized in psychological terms or energy. It's its own entity. And then I think if we study it, as it associates with the relationship as opposed to in tandem with the relationship, we really understand what the effect is. So like self-love, people will say, well, what's self-love, Katy? Like, how is that different from like self-confidence? And I would say, well, do you have confidence in the partner that you're saying that you love or in your child that you're saying that you love? Or is there a difference between love and confidence? Well, yeah, there's a difference. Well, it's the same love. The love that you feel for yourself is the same love that you feel for your child, is the same love that you feel for your partner, is the same love that you might even feel for your dog or the world around you or God. But it is the relationship dynamics that dictate how that is expressed and what that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love this conversation because love is beautiful. Love is just like as you were describing that earlier, the ability to see into people, the ability to truly connect with them. Like I felt it. I didn't just hear the words, I felt it. Like, yes, that's what it's about. It's that connection. It's and we think of intimacy as a form of love. And there's usually when people say intimacy, they immediately go to sexual intimacy.
Right.
But there's 7 pillars of intimacy. And there's emotional intimacy, there's spiritual intimacy, and each one of them are so fulfilling. Each one. Yes, there is sexual intimacy, but even before that, the pillars that the house is built on are all of the others, the spiritual, the emotional, the physical, which is separate than sexual. And then on top of that, that's where the sexual comes into. But this idea of intimacy as being a piece of love, I I love to separate the word. So instead of intimacy, it's into me, see.
I love that.
See into me. That's where true intimacy happens is I'm going to be vulnerable. And the price of love is vulnerability.
Mm,
In order to truly get the full experience of love, the price you pay for that is vulnerability, is to be able to
mm.
say, I'm going to be here emotionally naked or spiritually naked or whatever it is, and I'm going to let you see all of me.
I love that. And vulnerability, it's almost like, and I hear, because we think in like cost, risk, benefit, i- we feel like there are these exchanges. I think there is an energetic exchange, but I think that vulnerability is is a process of witnessing yourself exactly as you are,
Yeah.
accepting yourself, allowing for yourself, and then embodying that. And so really we say like naked, but I would say it really just is you. It's a fully integrated system of who you are. And vulnerability is the effort, the muscle that we work in order to feel connected, in order to tear down some of those barriers that we've learned or even unlearned, unconsciously have erected to keep us safe and protect ourselves. But it really is vulnerability is simply taking those down and saying, oh, this is me and I'm
This
okay
is me.
exactly as I am. And I think it starts here with us because self presentation is me trying to perform for you. What is it that what
Yeah.
is it that you need in order so that I can connect with you? But really, it isn't a connection because it's me performing a version of myself that I think that you're going to like or maybe not like, depending on what I want from you. But really taking down that self presentation and saying, like, this is how and who I am. And I might not be for everyone, and that's okay. I talk often about how a midlife crisis is more of a coming home to love as opposed
Mm.
to blowing up your life. But it is getting to a point where you experience yourself and you say, I'm okay how I am. And oh my goodness, I have been spending the last 40 or 50 years performing, and I only have like 30 or 40 more years to live. And I don't want to perform. I'm exhausted. I just want to be me, and I want to be seen for me, and I want to be loved for me, and I want to be able to speak from who I really am.
Yeah.
And it starts here and then it radiates out. And if even if you've been performing for 40 years in a marriage or something like that, and then you decide, this isn't who I really am, enrolling your partner in that and saying, like, I feel like I've been performing. Um, I need to start unpacking things. Is this going to be a safe space for me to be able to do that? Like a midlife crisis doesn't mean you have to blow up your life, but a midlife crisis does mean that you do need to go down to some of those roots of the barriers that have impeded you from loving yourself to be able to open that pathway to love yourself and then to really experience what love is. Because if we're only allowing other people to love us and we're not loving ourselves, then we really only know love to the level or capacity they do. And then also the level or capacity we allow ourselves to receive their love. But
Yeah.
when we open to love for ourselves, then we really get to play and experiment in the full capacity and breadth of what it means to live in love. Because I believe that love is the motivation, it's the intention, and it's also the imbued action. When you imbue your actions with love, then you live in love. And
Yeah.
so love can never be the outcome, because if you are aiming for love to be the outcome, then you're always chasing something. But when you live in intention with love being the intention, then every step you take is that manifestation of intention. It is that imbued action of love. And so then you don't seek love, you don't get love, you simply are love.
Oh, so well said. So well said. And going into that, what would you say, like if we're going to get in the kitchen
Yeah.
and we're going to create the recipe
Yes.
of love, what would you say the ingredients are? We've already talked about vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
but what other ingredients would you put in the mixing bowl to
Mm.
create love?
I
And
mean,
what,
I like the question a lot, because I host a television series called Taste Utah, where we are
yeah,
always talking about food and being in the
yeah,
kitchen. So you bring food and recipe into my life, and that is exciting. And also, I think love, the conversation of love is really exciting. And I would say that there are a lot of different recipes. And just like you're going to really appreciate a recipe that tastes delicious to your palate, someone else is going to appreciate a
mm,
recipe that tastes good to their palate. And
okay,
so I think tasting as you go. I think it's hard to generalize love. And the more that you seek to name it and claim it, the more it almost dissolves itself a little bit, in a way where if I were to say, Curtis, here's XYZ on how to love yourself, then and this is what love is, then you're not able to have the curiosity to actually experience it for yourself. And so even the psychological definition of like love is a motivation toward the preservation or promotion of another's well-being. Well, well-being isn't necessarily defined, because your well-being and what it takes for you to feel well-being might be a little bit different than what somebody else does. But I would say love right away, one of the foundational cornerstones is self-knowledge. So knowing yourself, being able to reflect on
mm,
yourself, being self-aware, being able to witness yourself without parameters, because we spend a lot of time judging ourselves, or like even judging our emotions. And then the emotions become good or bad. We're not able to contextualize them in real time. And truly, we want to create stability in our lives so that we can perspective take and reappraise if we need to. And I mean, emotional intelligence is cognitive reappraisal and emotion suppression, where you rate on those two different functions. And we don't want to suppress our emotions. So witnessing is essential, and really being able to see the gamut of our whole selves. And so much of who we are is light, and so much of who we are is incredible. And then there are those things that we maybe disprefer. But just because we disprefer something about ourselves, or we don't like something about ourselves, doesn't mean we still can't love it. Loving is unconditional. It's
mm,
non-transactional. It's non-contingent. So if you're in a relationship with yourself or somebody else where you are setting conditions where they need to perform a certain way in order for you to love them, like I'll love myself when I lose 10 pounds. I'll love myself when I stop drinking. I'll love myself when I complete my PhD program.
yeah,
Then
yeah.
here you're constantly outside of yourself. So that unconditional element is true.
And would you say that would be acceptance or compassion
I think
or
acceptance is the next step. I think you have to have this idea of self-acceptance, or accepting other people exactly as they are. It's a bit resigned, because you really are saying, like, I accept where I am in this moment.
that
M-
surrender?
Yeah, much like in life, you cannot heal what you refuse to feel. You need to be able to say, this is it. This is where I am. I'm sitting here and I'm able to really take stock and inventory. Oftentimes, taking stock and inventory creates the suffering, this idea of judgment, wanting something to be different than it is. And what really helps with that is compassion, this idea that I can sit with myself while I suffer, because compassion doesn't mean to fix or change. Compassion, the etymology of the word, is to sit with those who suffer. And I think the most challenging thing in life, I've sat with loved ones who have suffered, I've sat with myself while I suffer, is to sit with someone and say, I can't change it, but I am not going anywhere. I will sit with
Mm.
you while you suffer. And what eases suffering is not feeling alone in your pain. And so if you are in pain, if you have self-compassion, you are sitting with yourself and you're saying, I'm no longer ignoring this part of me. I'm no longer ignoring this thing I don't like about myself. I'm no longer ignoring the truths about myself, whatever they may be, whether they're painful or they're just something we're repressing or suppressing, or we've been taught and conditioned that they need to be painful, and sitting and saying, it's okay. I'm here. I'm here with myself, working through the pain. How do I feel? What do I need? That's a question I tell people ask themselves all the time when discovering self-love. To be able to sit with yourself and say, how do I feel? But how do I really feel? And that's where your
Witness.
counterfeit emotions are so pivotal and so essential. What is there here for me to listen to? Because hearing is an auditory sensation. If you are imbued with the gift or the sense of hearing, then you can hear anything. But listening is a skill that we develop over time. And listening comes from actively engaging in connecting with what someone else is saying or connecting with what we're saying. So compassion then creates this capacity, in my opinion, for love. Because what allows us to sit with those people who mean the world to us, and even maybe people who we barely know, and watch their suffering. I don't know about you, but I feel it viscerally in my body because I want to take it away so bad. But this is their experience, and I don't need to make it about me. And so
Yeah.
what allows me to sit with that? Love. Love is what allows me to sit with those who suffer and say, I can't change it for you, but I will hold the space while we work through it together. And to get by working through it together, that just might be that I hold your hand and I'll let you know that I am here and I am not going anywhere. And so you allow for it. Allowing for the suffering allows us to then see the pain. And typically we can see the root of the pain because it comes from dis-ease. Because what is dis-ease? Over and over and over again, when we ignore it, it becomes disease, which then becomes pain, which then becomes suffering. And that can be on an emotional level, that can be on a physical level, and oftentimes it's a manifestation of both.
Yeah.
And so that allowing is what then increases our ability to integrate. And truly, we have to be able to integrate it all. We have to be able to integrate self. We have to be able to integrate the interpersonal. We have to be able to integrate the outside world. We have to be able to integrate systems 1 and systems 2 processing in our brains. We have to be able to integrate mind, body, soul. This is communion, right? This is the
Yeah.
union. And I think
Yeah.
it is the union that is sort of the culmination of love, and that is the connection.
I want to hit on something you said, the acceptance of the pain and the acceptance of the experience in the life. It reminds me a lot of Dr. Paul T.P. Wong's work out of Canada. Are
We
you?
talked about this. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so brilliant is he created the existential gratitude scale. And he said that, first he had people take the spiritual well-being test and find out where they ranked on that. Then he had them take the existential gratitude scale, which is a survey or a test that says, what are you grateful for? And most people put in the happy things, family, birthday cakes, butterflies, all the happy things. But there was a very small group that said, I'm grateful for pain. And when he looked at those people that actually identified that they were grateful for their pain and matched it with the well-being scale, he found they were in a different stratosphere. They were in a completely different region than everyone else that said, I'm grateful for the happy stuff. When you can truly find purpose in the pain, and not just purpose, but gratitude for the pain, then all of a sudden the pain, we don't need to expel it from us. We don't need to exile the pain. We can turn pain into a sacred sorrow.
Well, pain is part of our lived human experience. Like, we are so amazingly blessed and fortunate to be human beings in this experience. I
like
tell
that.
people all the time, like, I call it sort of the human miracle mindset, where we look and we say, okay, we have like a theology of God an intelligent design, and he created this beautiful earth, and he created man and woman, and then man and woman have done what they will with it, but he gave us agency, and he designed all of this for us. And then you have those that will say, well, like there was a big bang, and these two things are theories, right? We know them for ourselves within ourselves, but they're presented as theories. And then there was evolution, and then over, thousands and thousands and thousands of years, we're sitting in this chair together. So the earth as we know it is billions of years old from either side, because what I was taught growing up was that God built the earth in 7 days, but that those 7 days were eons and eons and eons of time. And that from an archaeologist perspective, yeah, it looks to be that the world is billions of years old. We exist on this planet that is billions of years old, that has extincted, as far as we know it, every other living species that has lived upon its shores in its lifetime. We live on a planet in a solar system that, as far as we know, and as far as we've been able to see and prove in our mind's eye, we are the only species like this that we know of in a galaxy that is so vast, it would take us most of our lives to get to the other side of it, in a universe that is so infinite that the finite mind cannot even comprehend it. And yet here we are, you and I, sitting here together in this moment. Now, there is no explanation for that. In science, when there's no explanation, whether it's medical or it's psychological, it's termed a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of the ethos that allows you to find meaning and purpose in life, we cannot deny that this moment is a miracle. And so whether I'm experiencing pain and suffering, or whether I'm experiencing the greatest elation of joy, it is such a gift. The negative emotions do serve. The positive emotions do serve as well. The context is key, and truly how we integrate it into our hearts, into our minds, into our lives, and offer to ourselves and other people and the world around us is what makes us human beings. And I just think it's so lucky. So this idea of finding gratitude in something is finding meaning. It is those who know their why will withstand any what. Those who know.
Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah, those who know what this experience is, what this present moment is a gift. It is the present, and when we really start to think about that and tear away some of this idea of like expectation and having, high expectations of ourselves. Well, high expectations are something you're always chasing. Standards are something you can live into. So the difference between an expectation and a standard is essential. Truth is subjective. You have your truth, I have my truth. But accuracy is less subjective. I don't necessarily want to know what's true for both of us. Yes, I want to know your truth. I want to know my truth. But if we're talking about something relative, then I just want it to be accurate. These nuances, the way that we engage with our words, we imbue meaning into them, and it creates our life. So really understanding what we're saying to each other, the idea of perfection. The etymology of the word perfect is that it's done. So when people say, oh, I want to live a perfect life, I want to be the perfect human, I don't think that that's accurate. I don't think you want your life to be done. I don't think you want it to be over. But the moment is over, oftentimes even before we realize it's even begun. So then, by definition, isn't every moment perfect? So you are living perfect moments simply by being open and being aware of them. Dr. Pawelski, who I mentioned earlier, he loves William James, as do so many psychologists. He's the father of modern psychology as we know it. But he says, my experience is what I agree to attend to. And truly, when you realize that, where is my attention? So I can be grateful for my grief, and I can also be sick in my grief. Both of those are beautiful parts of the human experience. To allow ourselves to feel into our emotions and then to also feel our way out of them and not get stuck lingering in them,
Yeah.
I think is essential. I think the human experience, like, we are so incredibly fortunate. It's an honor to live in our shared common humanity. It's hard to reconcile it when we're not living in connection.
Yeah. And it's a miracle, like you said,
Yeah.
being able to experience this journey called life is a miracle. The statistics say that there's no reason this is happening.
Yeah.
That the fact that we get to have this life at all is a miracle, but we do. And for that, we can find joy.
Absolutely. And I think, you root down into the values and you feel into the values. You realize that arguing over the semantics of the system means that we miss life.
Yeah.
And so when we root into our values, we understand our values and someone else's values and meet at the level of like-heartedness and not like-mindedness. I think we are obsessed as a society of like wanting to understand. I think it's poisoned the word empathy for me to be able to say like, oh, I understand how you feel. You don't want me to understand how you feel. You want me to listen to how you feel. You want me to tell you, please feel. Let me witness you in your feeling. You don't want me to all of a sudden make your feeling state about me.
Hmm.
And there are some things in life, frankly, Curtis, I can't understand. I can't understand some of the aspects of what it means to be human because it's not in my experience, but I can relate to it. Maya Angelou says you have to be able to relate to the person on death row who murdered a whole family. Not that you would choose it, but that that human beings are capable. If it's within them, it is within you. And that is also another connection, but it's honoring the fact that being human means all of it. And so I can relate to you, but as Einstein, developed the theory of relativity, the theory of relativity is contextual. If a train is passing at X miles an hour, well, it's accurate. We both know what speed the train is going. But if I don't know the speed and your platform is here and my platform is here, then it is my contextual experience that is going to be relative to how fast that train is going and how far away it is. And so it is important for us to stay in our human experience and to be able to connect from a point of relativity and relationship, not necessarily this idea that, well, I can understand everything. Sometimes I don't know that we can.
Yeah. And oftentimes we hear, oh, I know how you feel, but I don't know that that is going to help as much as I want to understand how you feel.
I see you. Yeah. I mean, I think I can never know how you feel because I don't know your lived experience. I can relate to it through my human experience, but I can't know how you feel. I can't understand it for you. I can understand it for me. And that's not quite the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got a
Yeah.
couple ingredients in the
And the recipe of love.
in the recipe of love. We got vulnerability, we got compassion. What other things would you sprinkle in? A dash of this, a dash of that? What
Yeah.
would you put in that? Oh, we actually talked about intimacy as well.
Mm-hmm.
What else? And connection. Wow. We've got I wrote an article called The 7 Elements of Love.
Oh, awesome.
And we've actually hit on almost all of them. There's only 2 left, but I would love to know your ingredients as you're sprinkling these in.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of as I said. I think it's self-awareness and self-knowledge. I think that encompasses capability and capacity. I think self-efficacy, belief that you can do things, and not attaching to failure as something that means something about you, but actually is just information. I think openness is a big necessity in love. The idea that I don't own things or they're not mine,
Yeah.
but that they are, it is a gift to experience. And I think, so I think the self-acceptance and acceptance generally, compassion, and allowing And then I think the embodiment of those things, the practice.
The service.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I think service is
Yes.
so important, but I think service is different than sacrifice. And I think that we have a complicated relationship in our current society with the word sacrifice, because we're taught that sacrifice is attached to obligation. And actually, sacrifice, when you break down the etymology of that word, it means to imbue with the sacred. So when you are in service of someone and you feel like you are sacrificing, you are imbuing that moment, that act with sacredness. And there's no strings attached. There's no obligation.
I love that.
I oftentimes say, like, when you sit with a parent and they're upset that a child is making a decision that they would rather they didn't, they say, oh, I sacrificed so much for them. They're expressing their disappointment, and they're also needing a reminder that it isn't about the obligation, what you sacrifice. I think it's love, right? I think, like, if I were to sit across from, in Christian tradition, the greatest sacrifice was Christ's sacrifice. I think if you sat across from him and said, Jesus, do I owe you things, because you sacrificed your life for me? He would say, no, I knew I know who I am. I'm the Son of God. I knew what I had to do and what my purpose in life was. And I did those things, and they were really hard. And there was even a moment where I was like, hey, if I don't have to do this, that would be great. But if you do, but if I do, I will do it. Not because I want everyone on the world to worship me and to owe me things, because I want to remind them and model for them what love is, what it means to love yourself first, to know what you have to do and go do it and offer it. And then let people take it. Let people receive it how they will.
Yeah. That's so good. And that commandment, the two great commandments, I really believe is three. The first is to love God with all your heart, mind, and strength. And the second is to love your neighbor as yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And the as yourself, even though it came at the end, it actually goes first.
It's contingent. The whole sentence is predicated on the as you love yourself.
Yeah.
But somehow that gets chopped off in many teachings, and it's actually only in the last 5 to 8 years that and really mostly like the last 5 years that I've noticed it coming back, where it's love thy neighbor as you love yourself. And in Judeo-Christian tradition, there is that acknowledgement. And even in Eastern wisdom traditions, the namaste is, there's a light in me that I recognize. And because I recognize it in me, I actually see it in you too. Mm-hmm. And that light that is both without us and within us is what connects us. And I honor the light in me, and I honor the light in you. And that is the sacred connection. If I don't know the light in me and I see the light in you, then I'm terrified of the light in you, or I'm curious enough about it that I want it, and I want to own it, and I want to take it, or I want to dim it, and I want to put it out. It's foreign to me. But when I embrace it within me as well, it is my purpose on this earth to do so that I can offer you the honoring and I can receive your honoring back. With the commandments, the first, to love the Lord thy God, the second is like unto it. It's like unto it. It's not, this is the most important, and then you go do these other things. It's like unto it, to love thy neighbor as you love yourself. Because love, I think, is, we would call it in psychology or in the social sciences, bidirectional. It's the more I love myself, the more I feel love for others, the more I love God. The more I love God, the more I feel love for myself, the more I love other people. The more I love other people, it just ping pongs. Mm-hmm. And so it really is this beautiful capacity to expand love within our lives, not only to feel it and to honor it, but then also to share it. And I don't feel that love is an emotion. I think that love...
Ooh, tell me more.
I think that love is a motivation. So emotions exist in our hippocampus in certain areas in our brain, and they get pulled up with memory. But love motivates us to actually seek reward by extending ourselves to other people. From an evolutionary perspective, it's that act of co-creation. It comes from the same place in our brain as does the need for food and water. Those aren't emotions. Those are motivations. Those are needs. And then they prompt you to act on that. And that becomes then an integrated and an embodied action. And so emotion is separate from that. It doesn't mean that it doesn't inspire things. It doesn't inspire motivation. Certain emotions can inspire motivation, but I think love is not a feeling state. Love is a being state.
Wow, you've got my wheels turning. This is so good. This is so good. And love is one of the greatest connectors. If you look at the counterfeit emotions framework, all of the authentic they have what I call meta emotions that run through each of them, and that's love and surrender. Those are the two base emotions that flow through every authentic. And on the opposite, with the counterfeit emotions, they have two meta emotions as well, fear and control. And when we're in that state of love, we can find our true authenticity. But I think it really goes back to self-love. I think that's where it has to start. And that triangle, like you said, God, self, and others, those great commandments, those three great commandments, and they just feed off each other, expanding until they encompass everything. And I love that you said we can become love. And that, I believe, starts with self-love. And tell me, I know that a lot of people might be thinking this, but is self-love narcissism?
That's a great question. No.
Okay, tell me why.
But I will say, so what drew me to the Master's of Applied Positive Psychology program was that I had written a book on self-love, and it was all intuitive, but I wanted to find the science. And so I thought, of course, I will find the science at MAP, and then I'll write my master's thesis about it. And I had this whole experiment that I was going to do because I was just going to find the science. It was going to be there, and then I could go do this experiment. And when I started reading the research and even reading popular literature, it was fascinating. And this was only 8 years ago, how self-love was conflated with like self-esteem, which self-esteem isn't a bad thing, but it's not necessarily the most stable thing. It's very, very fragile, and isn't as productive as social scientists had thought early on, and that it actually doesn't predict many things that had been claimed that it did predict, like higher test scores and things like that. And then it was conflated with contingencies of self-worth. It was conflated with selfishness. It was conflated with narcissism. And the story of Narcissus, I won't bore you with all of it. I am an English major with an emphasis in British literature and creative writing. So I love words, and I love getting to the true translations of things, the true meaning, like what it's imbued in the word, because that is the resonance. But the story of Narcissus is that Narcissus was dubbed by all of the people around him as the most beautiful boy. He knew himself as superior to other people because other people told him he was beautiful, and he also believed that he was beautiful, more beautiful than other people. Not just beautiful as like that's my gift, but like what makes me special is I am more beautiful. I'm the most beautiful. And he hurt a lot of people because of it. So of course we're in ancient, Greece, and a nymph decides like I'm gonna teach you a lesson. So the nymph leads him to a pond where he gazes down on what we read as his reflection and what people teach us as his reflection. But if you read the words in the translation, he doesn't speak to himself in the first person. He speaks to himself in the third person, and he refers to his reflection as his lover. And he reaches for the reflection, and the reflection disappears. He goes to kiss the reflection, and the reflection disappears. Again, we have to sort of distend our reality because we're in ancient Greece where like creatures did live in the water. And He thinks it's another person. He thinks it's another being. He thinks it's something outside of himself. He has no self-knowledge and no self-awareness. If he did, he'd look down at his reflection and he would say, "Oh, look at me. I'm the most beautiful boy in all the land." Fix his hair a little and go on his way. But he doesn't. He dies because he is being rejected for the first time in his life ever by someone seeing him and running away from him. It is the myth of self-abandonment and self-rejection, not falling in love with our reflection, which is what we're meant to do. How we learn and grow is sitting in self-reflection. How we evolve as a species is reflecting. You can't evolve without love. It's the first 4 letters in the word, and you can't see it unless you reflect on it because it's spelled backwards. So from a theoretical perspective, no, self-love is not narcissism. But from a psychological perspective, it's not either. Because instead of doing this experiment and finding the science of self-love in my master's program at Penn, I developed it. So I did a bunch of research and did a massive literature review, both in the psychological sciences, but also just in popular culture as well. And I did qualitative interviews with what people thought. And then I whittled all of this data down to data points that manifested in different scale items. And then I whittled 100 scale items down to 10. And I have what I call now the integrated self-love scale. I used to call it the whole self-love scale because I love this idea of whole love. It's a term from Erich Fromm, and Erich Fromm is a German philosopher and, yes, early psychologist, I would say, but he never measured the concept. So he's not accredited in life and psychological sciences, maybe in the humanist psychology movement, but the humanist psychology movement has had its own challenges being taken seriously and considered legitimate. Although Abraham Maslow, Carl Rogers, I mean, these are incredible psychologists who have changed our thinking around transcendence and self-actualization and self-regard. And so, but whole also has this indication of completeness.
Yeah.
And I think that life is less about being complete and it's more about being integrated. We have all of these systems that run simultaneously. Like the human mind, I heard someone say the other day that the brain is the laziest organ, and I wanted to like instantly correct them. I didn't, but the brain is not lazy. The brain is efficient because it is responsible for everything that we know in our world. It's how our senses get integrated. We are the only supercomputer that we know that can run parallel systems. It's what sets us apart from AI right now. And people speculate that at some point AI will be able to move from serial into parallel processing. Parallel processing is what we do, and it's what allows us to integrate our experience of what is happening in the moment with what has happened in the past, with what will happen in the future. And we do that all without even trying. That integration system is absolutely incredible. And I believe that that's the case as well. I think that Roy Baumeister, who's a prolific psychologist, has a definition of self that I really appreciate. And it's the knowing self, so the ability to self-reflect and have self-awareness, self-observe. And then the interpersonal self, because we really don't exist without other people. And then the actor agent, because our agency is so essential. I agree with you. Control is not love, but choice is love, and agency is love. And we have choice. And some of Marty's greatest work shows this idea of learned optimism versus learned pessimism, or what he called helplessness at the time. And this idea that we actually have the ability to choose. Carol Dweck is the same way, this idea of fixed mindset or growth mindset. Yeah. And that if you pull yourself back enough to be able to ask yourself, from where am I functioning? You can actually say, I'm going to choose to change my perspective. Meditation is the same way. Like, I've never been able to stop my thoughts. I've been meditating for 25 years, but I do get to choose which thoughts I follow. And yes, there are times where I'm able to still the entire machine, but I'm not able to control what I think. I'm able to choose my reality by choosing the lines of thinking that I go down. And that's also what makes positive psychology so powerful, because you're not saying, it's not that I choose to dismiss the negative. I see the negative. I feel the negative. The negative is contextual. It's a part of me. It's a part of my human experience. And I also choose to think about the positive, which then creates positive emotion. And maybe I think more about the positive than the negative, which creates a more positive, effective life that I'm leading. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so I think that integrated love and integrated self-love is what we want, not necessarily completeness and just complete love, because again, complete would imply that it's over and it's done. And I think we're always in process. And I don't think we ever reach the pinnacle of like, I'm in love and I'm always in love. I've reached pinnacles in my life where I'm like, holy cow, does it get more loving than this? If it does, like, I don't know how to even be in that. And then boom, I'm not in that again. And then I'm like even in a bigger expanded version of it. And that is also how we learn and grow, through cognitive load, through physical load, through emotional load, through being in discomfort and then coming through on the other side comfortable. And it really is that process of I am going like this. So this is a human heartbeat, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. This is not a human heartbeat. We don't want to be here. We don't want to be neutral all the time. There are elements of neutrality. We don't want to be this all the time either, or this. But life is flow. Life is the beat and the balance, and it is creating the opportunities within ourselves to expand our ability to stabilize within the beats. And I think that love is one of the greatest stabilizers that we know. And I think that that's why it allows us to release scarcity and fear. It allows us to release the need to control, because what is the other side of control? Trust, faith. These things are equally as important. Like, they are probably parts of the ingredients of love, to be able to have trust, to be able to have faith, to be able to sit in grief, and even if it lasted forever, know how incredible it is to experience it as a part of our human gift.
Wow, that's powerful. That's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And we've talked a lot about the psychology. We've talked a lot about the science. We've talked a lot from here. Let's do the 12-inch drop. And what does love feel like to you?
That's
So
a great
Katy
question.
Sine, what is love?
I mean, love, as I say, like, I think that love is ineffable. I think that love is something that is hard to describe and define, because it's presence. It's connection in the moment. And I think some of these recipes allow us to feel it, but it truly is honoring my life. Yes, the survival, the attachment mechanism, knowing that all of it is a part of it, but it's also honoring the deep connection in my life and in your life and in the world around. It's seeing and knowing that we are an intricate part of all of it. Love is absolutely evolution. It's movement. It's stillness. It's loud. It's quiet. It's strong. It's courageous. I mean, love really is at the root of all of our most impactful evolutionary moments. I don't think it's anger. I don't think it's hate. I don't think, as I say, I mean, I think it is this deep desire to preserve and promote the well-being of ourselves and the world around us. I think about, my waste, and I want it to serve a purpose for someone else.
I think that's in C.S. Lewis' book, The Four Loves. I think that was the most profound thing he said, is that love is this idea of wanting the best for yourself and for others, to truly understand that process. And I think about love in my life. I think about, you know, what is love? What is kindness? And how do they play together? And I believe in order to truly experience all of love, you need to see the humanity and divinity of others,
Mm.
both. That it's not just enough to see the divinity in someone else, you also need to see the humanity in someone else, and to be able to see both sides of that, that they are this incredible, unbreakable, untarnishable diamond. Deep inside their soul, there's this beautiful diamond shining so much light, and at the same time, they're human.
Mm-hmm.
And just like the rest of us humans, they experience hard things, they experience pain, they experience faults and mistakes. They experience this hard yet beautiful thing called life. And to truly love means that we see both their humanity and their divinity.
Yeah, we see all of it, and we allow it to be integrated. That it's one of those things. There's a dogma within religion that's this idea of like natural sin, or that the natural man is an enemy to God, but God created the natural man, and so it couldn't be an enemy to God, and that truly all of us is a part of our human experience, and that we don't need to dismiss any parts of us. We can love all of us, and we can love all of other people as well. And I think ultimately, like, a barometer that I feel in my life and that I would encourage others when we think about love, because I think that things can be done in the name of love that are very harmful, but that it isn't necessarily love. I think that's another reason why it's very important for us to love ourselves, because when we know love for ourselves and somebody offers us something and tells us it's love, we can assess for ourselves and say, I don't know if it really is. But I would say love liberates.
Mm.
Love never constricts. Love never harms. Love liberates. And so if you're in a situation where you feel like there is love, but it's harming you, then I would encourage you to really reflect on where that love is coming from, and if it is coming from within you, because as you said, love is kind. Love and kindness go hand in hand. There's in Buddhism, the loving kindness meditation, where you think about another person, and then you even think about your enemy. And when I lead these, and I was just at this conference, I was talking to a neuroscientist, and she was saying the same thing, but when she leads them, because she's doing some research around mindfulness, that the most challenging part of it, where people start to really cry, where people start to really feel, is when you ask them to love themselves.
Mm.
And so I think, again, understanding the barriers to that, and then also understanding that it is important to love your enemy. Like, it is important to love people as they go through their humanness, but to also be able to assess from a relativity standpoint, your capacity to love in different contexts. So I always say, people will say, like, is love enough for a relationship? And I'll say, no, love is not enough. Love is an amazing part of a relationship. I know relationships that are full of love. And I know people who have relationships that are not full of love, and maybe companionship or something else, or even really, really difficult relationships. I would say the biggest metric of relationship success is relationship satisfaction. And a huge part of that is compatibility. You have to be
Yeah.
compatible with each other. And
Yeah.
truly, the compatibility starts at a values level. I had a friend during COVID who came to me and said, like, I think maybe I need to divorce my husband because he won't wear a mask and I will. He won't get vaccinated and I would get 10 vaccinations. And I just think that we're at an impasse. And I think it's an important story, because I think oftentimes we have a hard time understanding other people's intentions and motives. Like, well, why? And that's what I said. I said, well, I don't know if you need to get a divorce. Like, let's unpack it a little bit. Maybe you do, but why won't you? why won't he wear a mask? Why won't he get vaccinated? And she was like, oh, well, he's from a country that was overrun by like a fascist dictator, and his ancestors really suffered because of it, and the country still suffers because of it to this day. And he sees where he gave up his individual rights. He feels like he's saving lives. And I said, oh, that's so interesting. Why would you wear a mask and get vaccinated? And she said, well, because I would do anything to save someone's life.
Hmm.
And I said, well, it seems to me that your values are completely aligned. And so if you both can be comfortable holding space that maybe what's right is not being right, and that your values are what's aligned and what's right, and you are arguing over the semantics of how to get to the top of the mountain, maybe you don't need to get a divorce. But if you do want to hold so tight to what you think is the right way of doing something, then yeah, it probably is best, because you're going to cycle back to the same argument, but the argument is rooted in love. And so you're always going to come back to love, or you're going to come back to the confrontation, but you're going to have to be able to drop the confrontation in order to get to the love. And they didn't get divorced. They're still married, and they actually have a wonderful relationship. But I think the reminder that values and compatibility is super important, and that sometimes you can love someone and say, gosh, I love you so much, and we're not compatible. So I'm going to love you, from a distance, and that's okay too. You can, love is non-discerning in that way. We don't need to define it by saying like, oh, well, the people I love do this and do that and do this. It's like the people that I love live. And as long as they're living their lives, I'm loving them. And if they need me, I'm here. And if they don't, that's okay too.
That's fantastic. I think you just hit on it. The final ingredient in the recipe of love is curiosity. Is being able to sit without judgment, sit with truly being able to see into them and letting them see into me, and being able to say, I want to know you, regardless if we agree, actually, because we don't agree, I want to get to know you more. That's love. And I think that's the final little ingredient in the recipe is curiosity.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, one of the items on the self-love scale is I love myself because of my imperfections, not in spite of them. So if you're conditioned to love yourself in spite of your imperfections, you can't relate to that item, and you will mark not at all like me. But if you can come to an understanding that we love ourselves with all of our imperfections, we love ourselves with our undesirable traits as well as our desirable traits, it's all whole in that way. And that's one of the things, that differentiates it from narcissism, that differentiates it from contingencies of self-worth, from self-liking, this idea that there's an item that says, even when I don't like myself, I still love myself. Like is a preference. Love is unconditional. And so, so it's negatively correlated. It's negatively associated with some of these life outcomes that we've been taught, like narcissism or contingencies of self-worth, or even like negative affect that create a dis-ease and a certain level of discomfort around the quality of our life, whereas it's positively associated with well-being, satisfaction with life, positive affect, self-compassion, healthy selfishness, all these outcomes in life that we really do seek to embody. Self-love is the beginning. There's I would say it is a misnomer to say that you can only love other people if you love yourself, because you can allow yourself to receive love. And just as we talked about this, there is no hierarchy in the cycle. There is no hierarchy of loving the world around you, loving that which is larger than you, loving or God, loving yourself, loving other people. The more that you love, the more you expand your capacity to love. There's research that shows, or that would suggest, that people who give love more freely actually experience more love in their lives.
Hmm.
That's a finding, which I love. And it's interesting, again, in this conflation of self-love, the researchers use that as like a motivation to love others, to keep like group cohesion. But they didn't measure self-love, but they say this is why self-love is not good for you, because then you wouldn't feel inclined to go offer love. But I again would say the opposite. The self-love that I study, integrated self-love, and the self-love that I'm learning about, the self-love that I know, would say, I love myself. Gosh, I got to go share it with other people. And oh my gosh, I'm going to receive whatever, wherever they are on their journey of love as well. And so I feel love for myself. I feel love for other people, and I feel love for the world around me. But I think other people can help us love ourselves too. I know people and these are like anecdotal N of one
Yeah.
scenarios, but like who didn't love themselves, who didn't believe in themselves, but because somebody loved them, it got them thinking, like, I love this person and they love me. I wonder if I am lovable. Oh, like they're telling me all these good things about myself, and I'm starting to believe it. But I'm starting to believe it. I'm starting to embody it. I'm starting to allow for it. I'm starting to witness it for myself. Not dependent on them to tell me these things. So then that's how I know them.
Yeah.
So then it goes back to that self-knowledge. But it's this beautiful cycle of, I do think you can love other people, but I do think you can only love to the capacity you allow yourself to.
Mm. Wow. What an amazing discussion. I've learned so much, Katy. Thank
Right
you.
back. I have learned so much from you too. And I appreciate your recipe. I appreciate your offering and your commitment to helping people know themselves more, helping people understand their emotions. And I mean, the one thing we can really understand is ourselves, right? Like we're the greatest like experiment.
Yeah.
I always tell people like, go experiment with love. Like, be curious, be excited, be playful. Life is serious. It doesn't have to be that serious. Love is serious, but it is also the silliest, most playful. It allows you to be your whole joy-filled self. You're integrated in every aspect of it. And you are right there. And it has just been such a pleasure to talk to you and to know you and to connect with you. And just thank
Truly.
you. Thank you for the podcast. Thank you for your work, and for putting out there good things.
You're welcome. Thank you. And love is so closely tied to the one emotion that has no counterfeit, which is peace. Where does Katy Sine find peace?
Such a good question. I just find peace in being me. And that is in context of I could be sitting on a red clay earth all by myself, connected to nature and all of the things that are bigger and bolder and brighter than me. It really is in celebration of my family and my friends and the world around me. I mean, we're so lucky to live on this earth. I just think like, how can I take care of it? How can I nourish it? It nourishes me. Yeah, I try to walk in peace. Like Rumi says, walk in a crowded street and be the noise. I think that you can be in a contentious room and still be peace and still find peace. And I do think what has allowed that for me is knowing love so deeply. Love is just the most secure, stable, salient aspect of our lives. It really does allow for and never enables, but it just allows for so much. So I think when I am fully embodied and feeling love for myself, for others, for the world around me, I just feel peace. I feel peace in this moment. I've felt peace this entire podcast.
Good.
So yeah, so thank you. I feel peace in your presence.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you all for joining us again on this journey to find that one emotion that has no counterfeit. And I hope this week that you're able to start to explore your own self-love, that you can ask the question, do I love myself? And if there's any question there, to start saying why or why not, and exploring that deeply, exploring the beautiful human that you are. Until next week.